Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, and also happy February. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro. With me is the blue consolidated man.
Oh, hey everybody.
How you doing, Paul? You been bought yet by a big megacorp?
Not yet. There's the day is still young, so who knows if Microsoft or Sony want to give me any $5 billion options. I am open to suggestions. How about you, Alejandro? You been bought off yet?
Not yet, but I'm preparing the NFTs to be auctioned off.
Ooh.
And for everyone to give me the finger and tell me to go to hell. So
It's just a picture of a sock with different color filters.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah, and with General Akbar posted there saying weird things. So
Oh,
so how you been, Paul? It's been a week.
It has been a week, that's for sure. I've been doing well. Been catching up on a few things on my backlog because I know that by the end of this week we're gonna have the first game that we've been interested in trying to play, and then from there it's like something each week for the foreseeable future.
And we're still waiting to hear to see if it's actually good. The reviews hit on Thursday.
True.
On the 3rd.
That is a good point. But the game comes out Friday, right?
Yeah, but the review embargo comes out on Thursday. So we're talking about Dying Light 2, the first of these big new release tsunami. That's like the first contender, the first the first fighter landing in the battle royale arena. Ready for it to take on the world.
I am more excited about it after what we've been talking about lately and what we've been playing.
Exactly. So jumping into that straight, that is like we played Dying Light.
Yes, we did.
All
together. Yeah, the three of us.
Yeah, us two and Zach, our frequent contributor. That I still need to get him back in the show somehow.
We do.
Yeah. So Paul, how do you enjoy playing through Dying Light co-op, like all together?
It was such a very different puzzle piece to the gaming formula that usually I don't get to experience anymore. And that is the don't hold it too tightly in your hands, don't take it seriously, just have fun with it. Because usually it's I'm by myself, I like to get into the stories, so I take it really seriously. And then that's about it. Hi, Felix. Welcome to the party. There he is, the cameo.
Yes.
So I was very surprised by my process in this. I'd forgotten most of the game. I definitely didn't like the story as much as I used to, because I used to be like, oh, this is so hardcore, like a quarantine city. This guy dropping in, the parkour dude trying to be awesome, and his like good-looking UFC girlfriend that gets captured and you have to save her and all that. And I was like, yeah, okay, 2015 me is about it. Or 17, I don't even remember what year it came out. Anyway,
2015.
15. Okay, good. This was so different because we got to play through it. Zach had end game stuff, so he was dropping things for us. We were just wiping down zombies left and right.
That gun that he gave me, I used it the entire game. I'm surprised that it stood up.
And it's
in its entirety.
By the end, like some of the melee weapons that he'd given me had either like gone the way of the dodo or just not been as good in the end. But overall, I was just having the time of my life. Even by the time we were in that museum, there was like 300 zombies and we were just like, open up, and we're just shooting the entire room. And we would like walk through rooms like a SWAT team, and it was really cool to see that different aspect and approach to it, coupled with us racing each other, the free form ability to do competitions, the ease of use for weaponry and stuff to drop and pick up for each other. It was all about fun first, and that is one of the best things that I've appreciated about games lately.
Yeah, I had not had, obviously I played it with you. I had never played through it before. I played it a little bit, but this was years ago. I never really finished it.
That was part of the fun.
Yes.
Because you never experienced it.
So getting to experience it in fresh eyes and how succinct we did it. Like we did it in 2 sittings. An entire like night of playing, and then the morning of the next day. And it was very refreshing. It was like the momentum of how we were just going through those missions, the violence of crushing the skulls of the zombies, us getting down by the mutated zombies at night, and just the hilarity of the two of us trying to climb stuff while Zach was just using his grappling hook and still dying because he would like overshoot or miss. So, and I don't remember a damn thing about the story. I don't even know what that was, but I didn't care because that experience, I hadn't had like a story based game where I played with friends for a while that I just like I enjoyed every moment of it just playing together. And it's so funny because when we finished it, which by the way, there's like it's gotta be called out. I don't like the fact that the final mission you can't do it co-op. So we each individually did that mission while we were on mics, kind of like blindly telling, I'm at this part, you were in this part, or we're at the final boss. So don't keep in mind it's like a QTE. I was the first one to beat it.
Yeah, because I just kept dying on that one spot. Zach kept dying on that one spot, and you managed to get through all of that. So you didn't get spoiled by any of that experience. And then the fact that the boss fight was just like a set of random quick time events was so frustrating.
It's very 2015 when many games would end just in quick time events for some reason.
Yeah, because they wanted that full-on cinematic, and like they wouldn't trust the gamer themselves to curate a good enough payoff to all of that. So a lot of them were just like, I mean, Shadow of Mordor did it, this one did it. I'm struggling all of a sudden to do a few of those, but you know the ones.
Yeah. No, and it's what I do find funny though is that how great the experience was playing that game co-op, because after we were done, I kind of stayed in because I was like, I have the following expansion because I got the enhanced edition that came with it. So I was like, I'm still in the mood. Let me jump into this. And then literally 10 minutes later, 10 minutes later, when I saw the environment that I was going to be in, I was like, I am bored out of my mind. This is not as fun. I'm out.
What was the environment for that?
A farm. A very bland looking farm. And I was like,
so weird.
Yeah. And it's very wide open. So there's not much ability to do parkour because the big thing they added for the following was to use a buggy so you can be riding around, which obviously you can't drive at all during the main campaign. So that was like an interesting new addition. But I was like, yeah, I realized that I had the most fun just messing around with y'all, and I didn't find the excitement to just keep playing just by myself. So I just deleted it. I was like, well, I'm glad I got what I needed out of this right now, especially with the sequel, Dying Light 2, the game that we were mentioning that comes out this Friday. It's like, it's coming up and the review is hit on Thursday, so I'm hoping it's good, because that could be like the first big game that we play this year, because a remastered collection doesn't really count even though it was new. Which, speaking of which, we've also been playing Uncharted The Legacy of Thieves collection, the $10 upgrade, because Sony likes to charge you for those. So Paul, you went through Uncharted The Lost Legacy, right?
I did.
Tell me about it. What do you think?
I enjoyed it so much more than the first time I played it. I remember it as I got it and I thought, I need to justify the payment for this. I need to get through to find out what happens with Chloe and Nadine, because I had this big problem where I just want to know what happens before I'm allowing myself to really have fun with it. And that was how my mentality was for so many games for so long, especially if it was a big name sequel to something I was looking forward to. I felt like I needed to get to the end just to know what happened, and then I would go back. Problem is, I would burn through it, find out what happened, and then I would try to go back, and then I just couldn't enjoy myself. Looking back, I have now changed that mindset to the fact that I can just move at my own pace. I think Breath of the Wild really helped me with starting that change, because most of the fun was just walking through and getting lost.
Yeah, you were the kind of gamer that was you're all about the destination, not the journey.
I felt like I had to be, because like all of your friend groups at the time in high school and college, they were all playing that too, and if you fell behind, you would both get made fun of and you'd get spoiled about things, or you just couldn't talk about it, and that wasn't fun either. So I felt like I had to keep up, and I would always do that whole process, and it just wasn't very successful. So yes, I've changed that whole thinking. Lost Legacy feels so much more succinct, like you said. The pacing is much better, because I forgot that it kind of does the Metro style, almost Final Fantasy 15 style, where it gives you the open world first, and you can mess around with it, but then once you're done, it really like pulls you in. But I think what it does is it's that system, but really well done, because a lot of them feel like, why are you taking away this big world from me, rather than, all right, we had our fun, let's get to the meat of it. And I think that's what it has, a little bit of all of that for Uncharted fans, where it's got that, all right, tackle this however you want, curate it your own way, but now, okay, let's stop messing around, let's take the kid gloves off, let's do this. And then it's Uncharted from right there to the end.
Yeah, it's a greatest hits Uncharted. And what's interesting about this is that it's always funny to look at Lost Legacy, how it originally started as DLC for Uncharted 4. That was the point. It was like a $20 DLC that during development that just blew up. It was like they started getting a little bit more ambitious, and obviously they honored the price for people that bought the season pass originally. So if you had bought the season pass originally for $20, you still would get that. But if you didn't, you would have to pay the $40 for it. And obviously a lot of people are gonna say like, man, $40 for an expansion, what? But here's the thing, this game, especially Lost Legacy, is as long as Uncharted Drake's Fortune, as that original Uncharted. People forget that, and that was a $60 game. People keep forgetting that.
That is pretty surprising, honestly. And that one definitely didn't have a whole lot of replayability.
No, just playing it in harder difficulties and unlocking the unlockables, like the extra skins and maybe the cheats, or trying to get the platinum trophy, which I've done on PS3 and PS4 for that one. And that's why I always, like, anytime the whole value conversation comes out for Lost Legacy, I always wanted to naysay, because I was like, wait a minute, remember that original game? You didn't complain then, so shut the F up about that. And
wait, to challenge that, we live in a very different time now. So what could have been acceptable in that PS3 era, maybe not anymore. But
then even better, but now think about it this way. Would a $60 Lost Legacy had been even more accepted? Keep in mind that they at least priced it appropriately.
I'll agree there. Because I would not have been very happy at the time for a $60 game. I mean, especially now where I've gotten a lot more picky about what I'm going to spend $60 for.
Or 70.
Or 70 now. Good Lord. I wouldn't have, but I think that the story, the chemistry, the gameplay, all of the mechanics that they added, where it's like you were just kind of able to scrape that itch for the drivability and the grappling hook, which I would say were the two biggest additions. And they made an entire game where like the whole first half of it is built around the first option, and then the whole second half uses the grappling hook all over the place. And I love it because it changes the verticality of your environments. It lets you really take things on very differently, and it was just, I had so much fun with it.
Yes, and I would also say that Lost Legacy recovers a bit what I think Uncharted 4 misses, because if it's more extended length and it's more story focused, Lost Legacy recovers the game's pulpy action adventure side of things. Like, there's more set pieces, there are more crazier elements, even though a lot of those elements are more like greatest hits. It's like, oh, remember this is this again, but with extra explosion, with extra things that you didn't do the first time, like especially the very end with the train, the train section being the Uncharted 2.
That train segment being so crazy with every step of it. Like, you think you're off the train, and then you're back on the train, and then you're driving next to the train, and you're back on the train. The train starts exploding. You're off the train, back on the train, and it's crazy.
And then when you don't die, like, that just showcases Naughty Dog's like mastery of the set piece. And just how it all flows together so well.
It really does, because I couldn't tell you where, like, she's walking and you're controlling the character, and she drops down a small spot, and all of a sudden you're in a cutscene. I'm like, oh, cutscene. Okay, I can put this down.
Yes.
And it's crazy. And the fact that you can miss like the quick time events, and it just kind of weaves seamlessly back into the story. It doesn't break your focus. It just says, hey, you goofed up, we're going to keep this moving now.
They're just masters of that.
Right. And like, you almost don't even need to succeed in the final fight. Really? Because each time you get to a point where you're struggling, something else happens, and more choreography, more knees getting thrown, more punches getting thrown. It was just, I love that whole last segment of it. And I didn't give it enough credit. And also, I didn't like Sam as much at the
Mm-hmm.
time. So I didn't care about him being in there. But now I'm like, this works perfectly because Sam is the dude that thinks he's the coolest guy in the
Mm-hmm.
world, but he is always the butt of the joke in
Yes.
the end. And the fact that he is with two of the more competent members of the team and they're just not taking his crap anymore is hilarious.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Now, just to wrap that up real quick,
Yeah.
before we move on, what do you think of the PS5 enhancement of this collection?
Well, the 60 frames per second is one of the highest things that I prioritized in any of this,
Mm-hmm.
and I am not disappointed at all. I played some of it on my main TV, the 4K, and then some on the monitor, and I loved every second of it. It just moved so smoothly. And I had HDR on as well, so
Mm-hmm.
colors were just
Popping.
popping. And I'd say that's about it. I really enjoyed my time on it. What about you?
Yeah, it's to me what's interesting now is like, especially now that I've tried it more, is that whenever you switch to the PS4's performance mode, do you know that is not rendering at 4K? It's rendering
Yeah.
at 1440p upscaled
Yeah.
to 4K. And then I would put the actual full 4K mode that's at 30 frames. And I tell you, I don't know if my eyes are broken or not. I don't see a damn difference between that.
See, that's what I've been telling you with some of that.
With
Like,
resolution.
4K is all right, and I think 4K is more, what does it say, beneficial for movies,
Mm-hmm.
TV, sporting events, but not games.
It's
I
not
do
that it's
think-
it's not that it's bad. It's just that some developers are really good at upscaling to the point that if you didn't know
Okay.
this thing was 1440p, you would notice because the
Yeah.
upscaling is so good that you can get away with still thinking you're looking at a 4K image, but with the added benefit of a 60 frames per second.
I will say there's
It's,
one sometimes like Chloe's hair would get that pixelated
Mhm.
kind of view.
And that's a 1440p thing.
Right. But that was the only time, like, especially anything beyond a certain point, and especially like cutscenes, flawless.
Mhm.
Nothing, no notes there, but it's just gameplay moments whenever things are happening. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's just great. I enjoyed myself.
And it just as a tiny thing because that game also has a performance plus mode.
I didn't mess with that, did you?
I did because my brother has a 240 frames per second monitor that
Yeah.
caps at 1080p. So I was like, oh, it's the resolution this thing's caps. So I moved my bulky ass PS5 to his room and tried the 120 frames mode. Insane that they made it
Really?
work. Insane, and you don't lose visual splendor at 1080p. And that tells you everything, that sometimes really good developers that know their graphics or how to properly do graphics don't rely too much on resolution when everything they do within the game is so pretty. And for the people that really want to play at the crispest frame rate possible, because it just makes combat even more precise, because the more frames you have better control of your locomotion, you have better control of your aiming. It really works. It also worked with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So if you have a monitor or a TV that can do 120 frames per second, I tell you, give it a whirl because it's fantastic. So Paul, what were some things that you played?
Just honorable mentions. I continued playing a lot of Destiny 2 to grind, to build up.
What are
I'm
you
doing.
grinding in Destiny 2? Because I'm at the point where I don't know what I should do. I feel
So
like I'm
you're probably
exhausted.
further than me. I've been trying to get pinnacle gear.
Mhm.
I've been trying to get that challenge that you says like 1330 light. So
Uh-huh.
I was like, every once in a while I keep trying to get that to get a little more, but also bright dust,
Mhm.
because I know that there's like a couple more weeks worth of really nice stuff coming in,
Mhm.
which I haven't logged in today, but I think some stuff was in there right now. So stuff like that, and part of me kind of wants to continue working on my warlock just so I have that as an option if I
Mhm.
want to play as him, because like if you don't keep up with your alternate characters, you feel like you have to grind for like days and days just to get caught up sometimes.
Did you read the TWAP from a couple of weeks ago?
I think so, but
They're raising the minimal cap to 1350 automatically.
right.
So
Which does that mean everything
Every
that
character.
you have?
Yeah.
Or
Everything-
just the characters?
everything
base?
that you have that's beneath 1350 is gonna automatically put a 1350 when Witch Queen hits.
Cool.
So
Okay, so that'll help. I think it was more just in general, but yeah, I guess that is going to be negated by the time Witch Queen comes out, and it'll be like, all right, the
yeah,
grind becomes again.
don't grind for power right now. Grind for armor and weapons because those stats you can start building for your
Right.
stats.
So the stats, I've been doing that for my Titan. That's my main for anyone listening. Because I've got a really nice build, and I'm always looking for more things to kind of fine tune it, because at this point it's like night and day. If I play as anything with even similarly light level warlock or hunter, and I go to my Titan, and I will just crush everything. And it feels really good.
By the way, did you watch the trailer that I sent you today about the
Yes.
weapon crafting and the new
I'm
exotics?
I'm so nervous that it's going to be such a different grind now to get like a roll of what I want or something. Like, that they're not going to make it that easy to just, hey, pick the mods you like and then you get your weapon. Yay.
Oh yeah.
But I'm really interested in that glaive. I want to see how that works out in a first person view. And I want to try that out. But it's also like, all of this stuff, I'm gonna have to clean my vault out so bad for all the new roles and things that I need to do, and I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely have more Destiny to talk a little later. But what else do you play?
Just Banner Saga 2. I played that for like 30 minutes to an hour, and I realized that the combat in that game is so hard because if you don't get it right, you get ruined. And I didn't even play like part of the story. I did like a training segment. I was like, let me see if I remember how to do this, and I just got destroyed. So I'm not sure how long I'm gonna play that. Hitman 3, I also played a little bit of that. I figured out how to do my kill everyone process. Yay!
Finally,
because
you're playing the game not as intended.
Yeah, they have silenced auto rifles, and there's one that does high enough damage that can kill with a body shot or a headshot. And if you just kind of like half click it, it'll fire one round instead of firing a burst where that goes all over the place. So it's really about that single shot and you get all the accuracy. It's all about like, if you pull the trigger anymore, it'll just jerk you around. And I realize that's where their nerf comes in. But if you get that first shot off, you're good. So I did the Zero Dark 30 playthrough, I'm calling it, where I walk in with my regular outfit. I've got a briefcase with my rifle in it and a pistol and a lockpick, and I just go in as soon as I get out of the public area because I don't want to scare anyone. I open up the briefcase, I get the assault rifle out, and anyone with a gun is open season. So I walk up calmly, pop, keep walking. Civilians might freak out, but they run away to get people. So by the time they get to the area, I'm gone. I got to keep moving. That's the trick there. So I walk through and I'll clear out a house, a building, whatever it is, take out my dude, and then I'm out. And it's not like there for the skill of it all. It's more for the fun. So I do that every once in a while just to see if I can. And I've done it on the Dubai and I've done it on the Colorado maps. And that was very fun. But,
you're addicted, are you?
I need to, like, I've been slowing myself down to not get burnt out on it, but it has been very much more of the, oh, you know what, maybe I should try doing this map today and let's see what we do about that. And I follow what my aesthetic desire is instead of having to go through like sequentially. I'll just think I'm in the vibe for the weird underground space in that one Hitman 2 DLC, or I want to do the bank heist one or whatever it is, and then I just focus on that. I don't have to play anything that I don't feel like playing, and then I don't lose out on it. So I am very happy that I get to keep playing it, and as you know, there's always like stuff to keep you coming back to it, including the freelancer mode, which I want to come back to. However, I think I am going to wean myself off of it and come back to it a little later, or if I die out on it.
Now we are at the time for you to stop, like, because of what's coming, and then you can go back.
I don't want to burn out on anything else that's coming out, so I'm trying to not go too hard in any one thing. I almost did that with Horizon Zero Dawn, and I was like, nope, I need to hold off for Forbidden West.
Yeah, you finished it. Just
yes,
wait.
I need to get out.
Satiate your hunger with like the new one. It's exactly what I did with Dying Light. As soon as like start playing the following, I was like, nope. If we are going to get Dying Light 2, it's still a maybe right now. It's like, yeah, just hold off on it. And as for Hitman 3, Game of the Year 2021 still. So I'm glad that
it keeps crawling up.
Yeah.
Slowly, and it's like, go away! I don't want you at the top 5.
It's all you.
It's
especially when your Game of the Year picks were not even games you finished. Well, one you already did, finally.
Yeah. I did finally, and Kana I think is definitely Game of the Year for sure. But yeah, so that's everything that we've been playing, Alejandro. Why don't we jump into the?
I still have a few that
Oh wait,
yeah,
you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but I don't have much to say. Like I went on a Resident Evil replay kind of like rabbit hole just because I was like I want to keep playing some zombie stuff, and 7 is one that I went back to 7 after we finished Dying Light. I was like, I kind of want to do 7 again. I only played that game once in 2017, and then after I finished Village, I've been with that mindset of which one do I like better, 7 or Village? And because I really did enjoy Village a lot, but that game has a lot of highs and lows. And I went to Resident Evil 7 and finished it all in one sitting. Now kind of like going into the mindset of the puzzly version of almost Metroidvania-like style of Resident Evil, that at the time when I played Resident Evil 7, I was still in the mindset of 4, 5, and 6. So it took me a little longer back then to really play it and to really finish it and finding enjoyment. But now that I know what actual classic Resident Evil is, playing through 7 is an absolute joy. I really, really love 7 now. It's like, now if I had to compare it between 7 and Village, kind of how I say it is like Village has higher highs and lower lows. 7 is more consistent with his vision, and
it's like a slow burn.
Yeah, and 7 is not quite a slow burn, but it's just more consistent with its intent, which is basically Resident Evil 1 again, but done in a modern way and working as a proper video game. And the part that I dreaded going back to it, which is like a boat section near the end, not even as bad as the Foundry for me. Obviously, you do like the Foundry in Resident Evil 8, but I just found that section drawn out and boring compared to the Foundry.
It is a little weird because you have such a gap in how much time you spend on each environment, and the factory area is like 5 levels of constant labyrinth.
Yeah.
So I can see how people got tired.
Yeah, I feel the Foundry it felt like them reading wrong what people thought about the boat level in Resident Evil 7 and expanding it. Like they expanded the wrong thing, because Resident Evil 7 8 Village is so strong in its early parts. Castle Dimitrescu, House Beneviento, those 2 sections, like that game peaks in that early mid section, and then it's like this inflated balloon that then you pinch and it's like slowly deflating until a big moment happens at the end of the Foundry, and then you get all the revelations, and then you go back up again. So if you haven't played 7 or have been hankering to go back to, it's in the PS Plus collection. I would say definitely give it a go. Especially in PS5, it looks way prettier than I remember, despite some faces being a little ugly, especially with the Baker family. Out of curiosity, I jumped back to 1, the original one, and be like, I only played that game once back in 2016 with a guide. And I was like, I want to see if I can do this now without a guide, now that I'm kind of like in the mood. People, you can respect 1 all you want these days because it birthed the franchise. Don't play 1 now, especially without a guide. The obtuseness of that one hasn't aged well at all. I beat it. After a certain while, I was like, if I'm going to replay all these games, I just want to get through this. I popped up a guide again and felt very annoyed filing a guide to just finish it. And I did the Chris Redfield playthrough, and I'm like, yeah, it's better to just play as Jill. It's much easier, less going in circles. And after that one, I was like, I texted you guys yesterday. I was like, I'm ready to rescind my Resident Evil 1 opinion, because I remember when we did like an initial ranking between us, I put 1 very high on top of others.
Yeah.
And no, this is, with the exception of 6.
Remember, I put 1 at like right above 6.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I actually put that also. I agree with you that one.
I might have put it even below 6 if I'm
No, I think you put 6 bottom, and then you put 1, and then everything else up.
I might put it at the bottom and put 6 on top of it, because at least I enjoyed myself with 6.
Yeah,
it was funny.
It's funny. It's bad. That's the thing. Like, it's a bad game that you can have some fun with.
Yes. So it depends on what you're trying to grade it for.
Exactly.
So
but then immediately after I finished 1, I popped 4 again, and I had New Game Plus thing that I could just run through, and immediately got there, and playing through the early sections with powered up weaponry.
It's so fun.
Satisfying. It's like you mentioned it before, but Capcom is just the king of New Game Plus, and they've been the kings of New Game Plus since like 2005.
For a long time.
So just for catharsis, I might just play through 4 as we wait for new games. But enough of what we've been playing, Paul.
Yes.
We thought things were gonna be quiet after an insane last 2 weeks, but I tell you, we ended January, we started February, and I think we have gone through a year's worth of big, massive, industry-shaking news.
I'd say several years worth even. I'm so tired already, and it's only February.
Yes. So, Paul, press X.
For some news. Let's get into it.
All right, Paul. Yesterday at noon, at our noon, we see a tweet from Bloomberg saying Sony halted trading, news incoming. And I remember texting you that. I was like, oh no. Oh God, please no. What massive gobbling is about to happen? And then in a few minutes, we knew.
I will say it was a pleasant surprise.
Yes, especially
more than what I thought was going to happen.
Especially
which I thought they were getting into like NFTs or something.
Yes, but then especially when more details started coming. So, begun the consolidation wars has Joda 2002. Number 1, Paul. Right on Monday around noon, Sony Interactive Entertainment announced their plan to acquire legendary Halo and Destiny developer Bungie for an amount of $3.6 billion. This acquisition, which could be seen as a reaction to the bombshell Microsoft Activision acquisition from 2 weeks ago, is one that concludes a 6-month negotiation between Sony and Bungie, where Bungie gets to become an independent subsidiary of Sony, not under PlayStation Studios. What this means is Bungie is allowed to have access to Sony's cash influx while still operating as an independent company that can put out its games wherever they want. Note: considering Bungie has pivoted mostly into service games, keeping the games everywhere is smart. And note: this is an unusual acquisition for Sony, as every acquisition before it, think Bluepoint, Housemarque, just last year, was done as a clear-cut way to bolster their exclusive catalog. And Bungie remaining multi-platform lets Sony enter a scenario where they both get the revenue from other platforms and keeping players on those platforms happy because they're not taking the game away, as well as tap into Bungie's almost 8-year-old lessons in how to properly handle a live service game and not fall into the early pitfalls of doing that kind of game. Sony's been most known recently for their pristine, high-quality, story-based third-person action-adventure games without dipping too much into the ever-growing multiplayer scene. We've talked about that many times. They only do one kind of game. So Bungie's acquisition lets them now enter that space not as a newbie, but with people with experience. Paul, what do you think of that?
There is so much.
Just think about it like this. It's like the company that put the Xbox on the map 20 years ago is now owned by Sony.
I know.
2022 doesn't make any sense.
So on, I guess, the face value good reaction part, the good side of this is that, for one, it's Bungie, and it sounds very much like part of the rules were that Bungie really wanted their independence, which perfectly understandable, because the last time they were owned by another company was Activision. That didn't go well for anybody.
No. Activision didn't own them. They only had a partnership there. They were owned by Microsoft. I'll tell you more of the story, but yes, keep going.
Okay, so they were owned by Microsoft, and then they did their whole thing with Activision. So at least it sounds like Bungie is still really valuing their independence. Good, all around. Second is that they get access to Sony's money. Also good. Sony gets access to everything that Bungie not owns, but like their expertise,
the know-how.
So yeah, so I guess there would just be a lot of back and forth, a lot of handshaking, a lot of, hey, how are you going to suggest we do this thing for this game? And I mean, considering Square Enix's whole before Crisis, that's just the first thing that I come up with. I was like, what does Sony have that's technically a shooter that are going to have? And,
they had no shooters.
That was the only thing I could think of, honestly. And my goodness, do they need help? So yeah, they need it. There's just so much that is like, it's too early to tell, but I get so nervous about this stuff.
Yes, especially especially the consolidation thing. So just a little background on Bungie. So Bungie initially was an independent developer that used to do Mac games. Halo, the original Halo, used to be an RTS. Then Xbox, when Microsoft started building the original Xbox and needed games, they saw what Halo was, and they were like, would you be willing to make it a first-person shooter, and we buy you? And then they bought Halo. They bought Bungie, and that's how Halo was born. After almost 7 years working with Microsoft, like, Bungie wanted to do something else other than Halo. Microsoft was not letting them. They were like, no, you're gonna stay with Halo. And then they were like, then we'll leave. Then we're gonna buy ourselves out. And Microsoft let them go because they thought, oh yeah, Halo's already established. We can create a group that can just do Halo. We don't need the people that created it. And that's how they split from Microsoft in late 2007 after Halo 3. But they split from Microsoft with with a contract that they would give them 2 more Halo games. That's where ODST and Reach came out. Those were like the exit clauses. Like, okay, we're letting you go. Just give us 2 more. So those 2 games were contract games. Once they were done, they were like, yeah, we're moving on to the next big idea that ended up being Destiny. So Destiny was always done by them being an independent developer, but they needed a huge cash influx to get that idea going. And they found that in Activision. They got to Activision because they had just made Call of Duty the biggest game in the world at that time, with Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops coming up. So they entered an agreement with them, and Activision was always going to do like the publishing, giving them the money, but they were going to have the creative control of always keeping Destiny. However, that relationship didn't prove too fruitful for them other than the money, because Activision's way of thinking of, we need to put games all the time, something new every year, was counterproductive to what Bungie wanted to do, which was, we want this one game to evolve over the next decade plus years. Kind of like an MMO, without calling it an MMO, because MMOs have a very weird connotation that some people just don't want to engage in one, because like, oh, MMO means huge time commitment, huge grind. So they were very careful at calling Destiny an MMO.
Which, to be fair, Destiny absolutely is.
No, that's
both
the thing.
Of those things.
No, the thing is that once they left Activision, Bungie didn't put 2 faces about it. It's like, no, this is a shooter MMO. They didn't want to even, because it was always, no, this is a Share War shooter. But when you were playing, it's like, this is clearly an MMO. You're just not calling that. Okay, and it was until 2018, after the release of Forsaken, that Activision was, oh yeah, Forsaken didn't do as well as we wanted, and we're gonna make up by putting in more microtransactions. That's what they said in their financials, to make up for like lost revenue. But then Bungie was like, we're very happy by the sales of Forsaken. That's when you knew, it's like, oh, there's a split there. Then 3 months later, they were like, you know what? We're cutting this partnership. We're severing, and because of the terms of our deal, we keep Destiny. That was a big thing, because when they left Microsoft, the big thing they created, because they let Halo go to Microsoft, they couldn't leave without something. So Destiny was kept on them, and then from 2019 to now, they were independent, and that independence came in with some of Destiny 2's best moments, but also some very interestingly weird business decisions made by them shifting what Destiny 2 originally was, which was going to be the second game in a 4-game contract they had with Activision, and then deciding, no, Destiny 2 is here to stay. And then that's where Sunsetting came in, and they lost support studios, so the next expansions after Forsaken were smaller than that one, so they had less content than that one, because trying to make that kind of expansion with only one studio, that's when they had Vicarious Visions, they had High Moon Studios, they had they only had those 2 extra studios helping them work with Destiny. So it wasn't just Bungie working on the content. So its independence came a little bit of a cost. And it was interesting that this past year they were mentioning, especially, when was it? It was around September of last year. They were talking about scaling up. They were like, oh yeah, we're hiring more people. We're scaling up the building. What happened 6 months later?
Beyond Light?
Nope. This.
Oh, okay.
So this explains it, why they suddenly were like, oh yeah, we're taking Destiny 2 off of Game Pass, because they were on Game Pass when Beyond Light happened. It explains what they were suddenly interested in becoming a multimedia conglomerate. Bungie was like, we don't just want to make games, we want to make movies, we want to make TV shows, we want Destiny to grow beyond just being a game.
That's right. I forgot they said they wanted to do that.
Yes, and so it's interesting now. Obviously, I put it here, it's like, this wasn't something that Sony saw Activision go to Microsoft and they're like, yeah, what's available in the market? Okay, there's money. Boom, here's 3.6 billion. That doesn't happen. You have to build, like, this happened 6 months ago, but it explains everything now, why they were talking about making it bigger, because everyone was always asking, is Destiny making that much money that you're gonna grow bigger? Obviously it was, but now it makes sense. They were gonna get a huge cash influx from
now
this.
Tell me, do you think that there's any coincidence at all that this happened, or this started to happen around the same time as the Microsoft thing? Do you think there's any correlation? Excuse me.
So the thing, especially what we learned with the Microsoft thing, is like, it was in early November when we learned the Bobby Kotick bombshell from the Wall Street Journal, that that's when they tried to find someone please buy us out, because we're in trouble. Our stock market is gonna just keep free falling. And that fell on Microsoft's laps. It fell on a Microsoft lab that's so interested in just growing their gaming division so much because they have to feed on Game Pass. I feel this would have happened regardless of whether Sony was gonna buy Bungie or not. It's just kind of like, it's a Deep Impact Armageddon thing. It's just things that just happen coincidentally.
Parallel thinking.
You could make the argument that for 6 months they've been talking price and all that, and then seeing that, maybe this is when I was like, you know what? We've been talking for a while. We've talked about the terms of the deal. Let's seal it now. So, and that's when they sealed it. Maybe that's like the only thing, but again, this is not a reactionary move. I would say anything, whatever else acquisition happens after this, that could be seen as a reactionary move. And in big difference between Microsoft swallowing an entire third-party vertical versus an independent acquisition.
Which it is very different when you break it down. The nature of both businesses, it just kind of lines up that there were both big acts of sale in the billions that were done recently.
Yes, but what makes this one even more interesting for me is the fact that Sony bought Bungie, but they're not making it a PlayStation Studios studio.
I mean, they could. You imagine the backlash that would come from that?
Yes, but that's like the Sony MO. That's the difference between Sony buying something and Xbox buying something. That Xbox has never really bought something and immediately say this is exclusive to us. Whereas Sony would do that, you would know, oh, this is exclusive on PlayStation.
That's true. You at least know Sony means it when they're saying, no, this will remain independent. Microsoft can say, this will remain independent until we decide.
Yeah, no, it's like Microsoft sucks at messaging. They're all about the word salad that means not what it actually means. I gotta give credit to Sony when they announced this. It was Jim Ryan. We make fun of that dude all the time in their Sony's. Like, immediately we're like, yeah, we're excited that we're acquiring Bungie. And just to be clear, they're gonna remain a multi-platform studio. So clear cut is like, hey, yeah, we're not taking the games away, which is big for Sony because Sony would be the one that would be the opposite. But I think we
talked about it. Sony doesn't like to play by the right rules, where they say if they buy something, they'll usually just say, no, this is ours. You never get it back, not even on PC until recently.
And now I feel by them doing that, it's an interesting bargaining chip, because obviously I'm gonna talk about it later with the whole Call of Duty scenario. What's gonna happen once like the deal is sealed by Microsoft. Destiny 2 is Phil Spencer. Xbox is Phil Spencer's favorite game. Is the one he plays the most, and it was bought by their rivals. So just leaving that a little bit for later. But I think the most important thing about looking at this is the fact that this is a really smart acquisition for Sony in the whole live service game. There is no live service in the market that has learned everything like Bungie has. Being they were the first ones.
For consoles.
For consoles, yeah.
I would argue that maybe the Final Fantasy 14 crew.
That's another one, but that's on PC. Yes. That's like a PC game
exactly.
and all that.
That's mainly PC.
Ironically, Final Fantasy 14 became big the same year Destiny came out, so they have like similar trajectories. Because remember, Final Fantasy 14 was a disaster in 2010,
and then they had to do Realm Reborn,
and
then apparently
later,
everything after that. I have several friends that like
they play
religiously play it, and it is apparently solid. But I can't sit myself into that.
No, it's a lot. It's like 300
already.
hours. There's like 300 hours worth of content. That's like a full-time job.
It is.
And just thinking about how Destiny was like probably the most mainstream live service game that entered the market and inspired many to follow. And everyone that tried to follow also had to like suffer the highs and lows of trying to start something like that. Since Sony has been so focused on doing the single player story-driven game, the fact that they were interested in entering the live service thing, it was going to be foolish for them to start and not have people that understand what needs to be done, what you should do and shouldn't do way late in the market. Just look at Avengers and Anthem. It's like they made the similar mistakes that Destiny 1 did in 2014, and they came to do this in 2019 and 2020, almost 6 years later. And not many people have the patience of going through a new live service game that's figuring itself out. So why not bring in the people that have been doing this the longest in the console space, that have the technical know-how and are the most successful in their space? That's the funny thing. Destiny was the first one in. Everyone
There's
that has
nothing that's come close.
Yeah, and you can make the argument, Fortnite is the biggest service game ever, but that's different. That's just a battle royale that knows how to microtransaction itself well. It's not as complex as Destiny. And Destiny is, even in its highs and lows, and the times you can make fun of it, and the times that you're so addicted to it, it's like it's managed to stick, and it's going to its 8th year right now, especially in today's the first, in 21 days, it keeps expanding itself. So it's like this was smart for Sony, and someone made it. I follow a Discord of one of the podcasts that I listen to, the Secret Symbols podcast. The main podcast host there mentioned is like, this price sounds about right, because what Sony paid for Insomniac is straight up robbery. The fact that they just got Insomniac for $229 million compared to what's being paid now.
I know.
They literally stole.
Insomniac is massive, apparently.
And Insomniac has been giving them so much. Like, especially they're gonna give them 5 games within the console.
Carrying so much of their catalog right now. But I know we should probably move on with this, but last thoughts of like I said at the start, is it's so early that I can't really tell. I get really nervous about the idea of consolidation. I don't like it. This isn't good for the industry overall, because we're losing one more card on the table for the world to use for consumerism and pro user interfaces and stuff like that. You could talk about that all over the place. In the end, I'm nervous, but it's at least, if this is what keeps Apple, Google and
Amazon,
whatever,
Amazon
out of the whole, Tencent keeping it out of what we like to play, then I say, hey, it's a lesser of two evils. Maybe.
Exactly. It's like it's making a devil's bargain here. It's like you either let the other bigger conglomerates that have incredible market caps try to swallow a company, and them not understanding what gaming is compared to Microsoft and Sony. If this is where the industry is leading, which sucks, it's like it's the lesser of the evils. But if you thought this was the end of the acquisition spree happening in 2022, Paul, buckle up. Number 2, Sony Interactive Entertainment President Jim Ryan confirmed in an interview to GamesIndustry.biz detailing their Bungie acquisition, saying, "Absolutely, expect more acquisitions. We are by no means done. With PlayStation, we have a long way to go. We have many more moves to make." The big question remains, what kind of acquisition is coming based on who's left in the market? Will the next move be one of the Japanese conglomerates? Or one of the big two left, Ubisoft or EA? Considering popular gaming personality Jeff Keighley tweeted today he's heard rumblings of more acquisitions nearing final deals, the consolidation of the gaming industry will continue unabated. this is the thing I mentioned. That was yeah. It's like that dumb when Activision fell as the domino. I was like, yeah, it's happening. It's like, and the Sony thing happening despite having been in the works for a while now. You said the chain reaction now. This means more. And the big question is like, who is gonna be able to do that? Obviously, right now, Microsoft has the FTC going over their Activision deal. The FTC. So I doubt they're gonna.
It makes me wonder if like all these people keep doing that. The FTC's like, damn it, we gotta go through another one of these. Jeez.
Can you imagine?
Y'all just chill out for 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
it just makes me really curious. It's like right now, especially with how big a massive acquisition that was for Microsoft, can they immediately announce another big one? I think that's when antitrust would reign under parade.
I mean, especially if they're not done with the previous one, then they're going to be like, okay, y'all really got to stop with this or something.
Especially with all the money they're spending.
Yeah. And I get real nervous about any of that. So if it is anything, it's got to be somebody that's not Microsoft and it's not Sony. I don't think Nintendo's going to go that route because they're so focused on their own stuff that they don't care. It would have to be one of the other big ones, or like we're fearing, it's going to be one of the big boys diving in and
that's what
saying,
I fear, because we've gone with
buy X, Y, and Z developers, and we're going to make this new studio called blah blah blah, and don't worry, we promise we're going to keep focusing on all of our people that love these series and IPs, and we'll get those to you, we promise. Please buy our games. Oh my goodness, we need your business. And then new NFTs are going into the blockchain on the next 2K game. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it's like
there's like Take-Two Interactive is still available. Obviously I mentioned Ubisoft or EA. We got the Japanese ones, Square Enix, Capcom, Sega, Bandai Namco. It's like, my biggest fear is that they're just killing the third party. What would be the third party games that we play other than just exclusives? That just sucks.
The only thing left is going to be indies. And then
they're going to be swallowed up. That's the thing. Indies will rise up and then they'll be swallowed up. Look at Wordle, recently acquired by the New York Times. It's
gosh, yeah.
And the thing with PlayStation, here's also something to notice: like every acquisition Sony has made from their side has always been a result of nurturing and the identity of the studio making sense to the portfolio that they've been building. Bungie is so far away from what they've been building with their first party. Now I feel like if Sony is gonna be acquiring, they're just gonna be acquiring because they have to instead of because they want to.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the position Microsoft has put the industry in.
They have, and it's like, I don't blame them, but that also is not going to lead to very good cooperation. It's not going to lead to efficiency. It's going to definitely lead to at least one of these big companies overreaching themselves and really getting themselves into hot water. And it's only a matter of time before stuff like that happens, because you just have to move at this point. You can't wait, even if you're not ready.
And then going back to Microsoft, is the fact that they're going to be owning more than 30 studios, but the fact that they already had a bunch of stuff and they haven't been putting out much stuff.
Like nothing.
It's like, that's still the proof in the pudding. Will they be able to really handle all of this? And all the dead IP they already had on top of the IP they're just acquiring with Activision. Obviously, the main goal there is because they want to feed Game Pass. That's why they bought all of that. And obviously we see how Netflix, HBO Max, Amazon, and all the streaming video services that we have now, how they contort themselves to just put as much content as possible to justify everyone always staying subscribed, because if there's nothing new, some people just let their subscriptions lapse. And that's still the proof. And with Microsoft, at least, I'm still skeptical that they'll be able to put all of it to like a good quality, considering how much they have. But if they do, I'd be very surprised. But now my big question is, like, is Sony gonna be also consolidating and buying everything because they're gonna change their stance in Project Spartacus that is still coming up to be revealed? Is gonna change its tune and gonna be like a day one thing? Who knows? It's like, it's really, really fascinating, turbulent times of what's coming up with the industry, how it's like changing its shape in front of us, and I hate it. Screw you Tencent, screw you Amazon, screw you Google and also Apple for kind of like teasing you want to get in. And everyone's trying to get all the content away from you because they know that if one of those big ones acquires someone, it's going to suck. Because there's nothing worse than someone that doesn't know about gaming try to make their mark. Look at Stadia and Google, how quickly that died. So
I want all of those three to fail at every opportunity they can get. But the gaming industry is the fastest growing and one of the biggest profit margins that you can acquire. So just of course it's going to happen.
Yeah, just think about this. It's like Sony has way less market cap than Microsoft, yet Sony makes more money from games than Microsoft. So that's what's so interesting. That sometimes just because you have the big money bag that you can kind of brag about doesn't mean you're gonna be the best one, despite you attempting to buy yourself to the top. So number 3, Paul, a follow-up to what we talked about Call of Duty last week. Literally when we stopped recording, this news popped. So number 3, Call of Duty fans playing on PlayStation consoles now know what the time limit is for the ever-popular franchise to remain in their console of choice. According to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, Sony and Activision had already inked a deal prior to the Microsoft acquisition, literally the week before, where the next 3 Call of Duty entries, which includes 2022's game headlined by Infinity War, 2023's game headlined by Treyarch, and a follow-up to the ever-popular Call of Duty Warzone, would show up on PlayStation consoles as contractual obligations. However, once those contractual obligations are up, it's said all 3 of these games will be out by the end of 2023, coincidentally the timeline Microsoft seals their deal. The future of the Call of Duty franchise gets murky, which leaves Microsoft in a position where they keep the series multi-platform or brings it in-house. Whatever that decision ends up being in 2024, PlayStation fans get a couple years to enjoy the series in their console of choice. I tease this right now, especially mentioned the whole Phil Spencer loves Destiny.
Yeah.
I wonder if in the chess game that Microsoft and Sony were playing, the fact that Sony acquired Bungie, the biggest, most important studio Microsoft ever had, to get them where they were despite their split, and them still being pretty cozy with each other. I mean, they had the Destiny expansions on Game Pass, and Phil Spencer loves Destiny so much he wanted to make a bunch of live service games inspired by Destiny from his first party. That's kind of where the inspiration came. Now it's like Sony comes in and is like, oh yeah, we're buying Bungie, but all of this is multi-platform. They're not saying, oh yeah, it's not our intention to disrupt the communities that are just there, and we're gonna support those communities. Oh yeah, by the way, we're putting all the new games exclusive to us. I wonder now if like Sony's putting themselves as the good guys, like despite them not wanting to be the good guys, but just as like a bargaining chip, is like, look what we're doing.
They always try to play that route though. I mean, you saw like in, was it 2012 or 2013 when they were announcing everything with the whole nonsense of DRM and always online, and we know the whole story, but Sony always trying to play the good guy, even though they had the same plans in motion. It was because Microsoft went first and they said, oh no, we would never do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Never do that. Here you go.
Yeah. So
play
now
our game.
I wonder if now that we know that deal's inked, that's what Sony was referring to, that they're expecting Microsoft to like honor contractual obligations. Now I do wonder, now by putting them in this position, they now go to the table with Sony and be like, okay, we know Destiny is not the only thing Bungie's building. They're building other stuff there. They've committed already that they're gonna.
They're making the new IP, aren't they?
They're making the new IP that's supposed to be like a PvP thing. Now,
do you think that's gonna be exclusive?
No, because they already declared that. Oh yeah, Bungie's an independent subsidiary and everything's multi-platform.
Okay, I couldn't remember if they said Destiny's multi-platform or everything they make will continue to be multi-platform.
Yeah, I was watching the Richard Hogue live stream he did today, kind of talking about this deal and how.
Which is the law.
Yeah, videos. The law videos, which are amazing. If you want to do like know the legalities of stuff, he's excellent at putting it in layman's terms and being very entertaining doing it, and very sarcastic sometimes. It's amazing, especially when he does the lawyer like corporate voice. It's funny. Multi-platform can mean this is in the one console and on PC and mobile devices or not, but that's if you're wanting to be very insidious about it.
Yeah.
So, I do wonder if, like, let's put like 2 scenarios here. Scenario number 1, Call of Duty will actually remain multi-platform. They're gonna commit, okay, with this, the entire series, whatever entry we do from here on out after 2023, now that we own this, we're gonna do the Minecraft thing. This thing is too big to silo off. The other things that we siloed off, I think is gonna make the value for our own service good enough, especially while they're doing the Starfield. But Call of Duty being the number one selling thing in the entire world is not gonna be the number one selling thing in the entire world if you're putting it in the system that's not selling as well as the other thing. That's number one. So it's like, yeah, they were gonna leave it as is, as long as you guys also gave us the Bungie games. Deal. Scenario number two, Microsoft chooses violence and be like, no, now that the contractual obligations are out, we want Game Pass to be a thing. So
yeah,
we're taking Call of Duty in-house now. If you want to play Call of Duty, you're gonna get Game Pass.
I think that one would require a lot of extra hoop jumping on their part. But go ahead.
Not really, because they own it. They can put the things they own.
I'm saying
Game
like
Pass.
PR.
Oh yes,
they would have to do so many backflips to justify it. I think.
And they would be hated. They would be like, yeah, you're basically doing what we figured you were gonna do. It's like taking things away from others. Then that's when maybe them Bungie, Sony goes to Bungie and be like, yeah, we said we were gonna give them multi-platform. Look, they're not playing ball. We're not playing ball with them, so we're staying here. So, and it's again an interesting point, the fact that Destiny 2 is Phil Spencer's favorite game. Let's not like mince words. It is. So interesting times, and I feel now the whole Bungie deal actually makes me give like a little bit of a white flag to the Call of Duty fans that play on PlayStation, because there's a bargaining chip now that can make that thing possible. So
yeah. But do you think Bungie would really jump into that at the defense of Sony? Because it doesn't seem like they really have any ill will for Microsoft.
Yeah, they don't, but that's the thing. Like, you know what the Bungie Sony deal reminds me of a little bit? The initial Activision Blizzard merging. Blizzard was part of Activision. So? They were a part of Activision, but for like 10 years, they allowed Blizzard to remain independent. They're doing their own things. They're releasing on their own stuff. We're just cashing in on their success. We're paying their bills, but they're doing the thing. It was until 2018, the president left, that Activision was like, okay, the president left. Let's start inserting ourselves more into that company, in the actual decisions.
Do you think this could be like a foregone conclusion of this is how it begins? Bungie and Sony are going to work together, and then one day, if they really play ball well and realize that they have the right connections, they might really merge into something bigger.
And that's the thing. It's like, no matter how you like write it, it's like when you buy something, it's yours. No matter, they're just like giving, with Bungie, they gave them these stipulations because they were so specific. Bungie to wanting an independence, of not having anyone telling them you're only working on this one thing. That's why they left Microsoft, because they just wanted them to still be the Halo. They wanted Bungie to be what 343 is right now. That is just a Halo studio. Not like
Bungie's like, nah.
We got other things in our mind. We want to do more things, not just one thing. So they allow them to be like, yeah, we get to cash in on Bungie stuff, and Bungie gets to feel like they take control of their own destiny despite us holding them in a way. I could kind of see that scenario, but I feel for the PR of it all. Now, like, Sony had put Microsoft in that position. It's like, hey, they literally didn't mince words. They're giving you the games despite them owning and being the company that when they bought something, they took things away from you. They're not doing it this time. Are you gonna be the bad guy? Especially with the biggest game in the world?
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like not, and in a way, it's like, this is like also Sony seeing the market, the shooter market, moving away from them and just going to Xbox, because Xbox is just getting every shooter available. Wolfenstein, Doom, Call of Duty, Halo, like everything, Overwatch, all of the shooters are over there. This at least ensures them. It's like, hey, we got Bungie here, so at least we're taking care of the shooters, especially one that's really popular with Destiny. So it's like a lot to unpack. There's the thing with all these things. There's so much you can unpack from all of this. And but I would say, Call of Duty fans, like, now you're in the 50-50 scenario. You know when your series finale is. You got 2 years. You got your Call of Duty for this year, and you got the 2 that are coming next year. If for some reason things go wrong, and they decide, no, you have to pay for Game Pass to get here, at least you got 2 years to know if you want to invest on an Xbox or on your PC. But in your other 50%, that bargaining chip of getting Bungie, now it's like, now gives you a likelihood that then Microsoft is going to play ball for them to not look that like such bad guys. And in a way, by doing that and by giving Call of Duty away, it will make it easier for their Activision Blizzard acquisition to pass through, because they're like, hey, they're still gonna, the biggest thing from this deal, they're gonna be sharing it. So this is not anti-competitive. They're keeping the market even. So it's like a slightly, yeah, it's like the backhand that we're helping you, despite us not wanting. So yeah, so moving on from the whole Bungie, Activision, Microsoft thing. Well, we're gonna talk a little bit of Microsoft a little later. Number 4. Have you been waiting for when Square Enix is going to reveal more information for the second part of their highly acclaimed Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Boy, am I.
Yeah. Well, according to Video Games Chronicle, director Yoshinori Katase confirmed they're still hard at work finishing the iOS game Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. And with this year being the 25th anniversary of the original Final Fantasy VII, which, by the way, on Monday, it turned 25. This past Monday. Can you believe that?
I got lost on the fact that I realized Ever Crisis is an iOS game only.
Yeah, they turn-based with the graphics. Yeah,
I thought. Okay, I'm thinking of. Wait, then what's the Battle Royale?
That's a different name. That's not Ever Crisis.
First Soldier. That's what that's called. Okay, I got that mixed up. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, happy 25th birthday, Final Fantasy VII. So it is their intention to give more information about the upcoming game sometime this year. So anytime. It will be interesting to see the timing of when they will give more information about this game, as Square Enix is stacked with Final Fantasy games at the moment, including the upcoming Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin co-developed with Ninja Theory, as well as the upcoming PS5 exclusive Final Fantasy XVI, which was supposed to have more information coming in 2021 before COVID disrupted their development, which is set to be very far along. So I think they're not going to say anything until we have like a release date for Final Fantasy 16. Obviously, Stranger of Paradise, your beloved, is coming on March 18th. So at least that will be taken care of. It will come. Ironically, this year is also the 35th anniversary of the original Final Fantasy. So it makes sense why Final Fantasy Origin is coming this year. It just lines up.
And, I didn't even think about that. But my gosh, the fact that it's been 35 years for the series like this.
For all the series that we're so used to. We've gone through Mario, we've gone through Zelda, and now we're like with the Metroids, the Halos, all this like classic series. I
still think about gaming is only being like less than 20 years old sometimes, and I forget that it's really getting legs.
I agreed. I would 100% agree. I can't wait. Final Fantasy VII Remake is so darn good. Even like it's still like the more I get away from that, the more impressed I am that game came from them, considering all the turmoil. And whenever that one gets more info, it will be one of the most highly anticipated games in any given year. And it should be close, because then it's like once Final Fantasy 16 is done, what else do they have? They will have that. So,
but they have First Soldier. Gosh, Alejandro.
I mean, it's like a mobile game that I think it's out already. Maybe it's like on beta. Who knows?
I think it's like early access or something, but I know people have been able to play it. But anyway.
But I would say the Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, that's basically the Final Fantasy remake people actually wanted. It's straight to the turn-based combat and all that, but it's just on mobile. Again, like Square Enix always has the most peculiar taste when it comes to prioritizing where to put games people want. Remember the Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 announcement that then deflated immediately with a massive cockblock of the century with being just PC and mobile.
And then the original attempt they were to remake everything was like on the DS, and then on the PSP for some, and then PC for a few, and then for, of course, their Golden Child, you get like a full remaster remake of everything, and it's ridiculous.
And I hear the cat.
Yep, he is yelling away, and he doesn't have to eat for another hour and 15 minutes. Anyway.
You probably will feed him sooner than that. So number 5, staying with Video Games Chronicle, they reported that the upcoming Star Wars Eclipse game from Quantic Dream has been reportedly inspired by The Last of Us. Quantic Dream was allegedly inspired by The Last of Us blend of story and gameplay, not unlike Quantic Dream's previous work. And the game is said to be an open world game, according to the inside sources, wishing to mix Last of Us sensibilities in an open world environment, while also featuring multiplayer being made by Quantic Dream's recently opened Montreal team. What a weird mix that would be. In other Quantic Dream news, also by Video Games Chronicle, their 2013 occult comedy tech demo, The Dark Sorcerer, which is like, it was this weird tech demo they showed in the first PS4 Sony E3, has morphed into a full game like Kara before it. Do you know that the Detroit Become Human was a tech demo called Kara?
Yes, so, I watched that, and that was really emotional and heartfelt too.
Yes, especially with the kind of animation that we got in 2012, which stayed with Detroit Become Human. So this new game, codenamed Dreamland, is allegedly the next game in the traditional Quantic Dream mode. So this one's gonna be like choice-based, linear adventure with multiple endings, and it's supposed to be a cross-gen game. No more details are known about the game, but if it's meant to be a cross-gen title, then it should be fairly imminent, considering Quantic Dream's last game, Detroit Become Human, came out in May 2018 as an initial PlayStation 4 exclusive before the company severed its ties with Sony and put their games on PC. What do you think of this? The two Quantic Dream games.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm leaning more on the optimistic side though, because Quantic Dream, even though they haven't been like the best with certain things, they really clearly are trying to do something different with this, which I respect. And then like they're taking certain things from Last of Us, but it sounds like they're still trying to do more out of it instead of say, we're just going to do The Last of Us. I mean, who knows if they actually try to do that, but I think this is going to be interesting. I'm going to keep my mind open, but I would say I'm more excited about something like this than if somebody said we're going to make like a by the numbers like Star Wars adventure game, and I'm like, all right, but we've seen that before. But this is like they're clearly trying to push themselves into something different.
Especially they're pulling the kills into Horizon Zero Dawn or Titanfall to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, kind of like jump from what the original used to do into something completely different.
Yes.
And it's interesting that they see The Last of Us blend of story and gameplay, because that game, especially the biggest strength of The Last of Us is how much storytelling you can glean without you ever letting go of your controller. Yes. And still being in gameplay. That's probably the strongest thing that Last of Us does, more than just the cutscenes.
What they're taking, I love that, because that's like one of the best ways you can immerse an audience. That's one of the best ways you can not waste time, because I find myself half the time when a cutscene comes on, I pull out my phone or I do something different, because it's not engaging.
Exactly.
But if you're forcing me to hold the controller, I'm having to engage with their story that you're putting in front of me.
That's why Bioshock was so good. That's why Bioshock Infinite was so good. That's why Batman Arkham Asylum and City was, especially Asylum, was so good. So much in-game storytelling without you like stopping playing. That's the way. And doing that in an open world game, I think that's especially in the world of Star Wars, that would be such a really great immersive way to
once
get
again
into that.
The perfect world for the perfect set of video games and anything you could possibly want. And this is where we're like, okay guys, come on, let's really push ourselves here. Let's not go for the low-hanging fruit.
Now this Dreamland game that's supposed to be the Dark Sword, like coming from the Dark Sorcerer, I'm a little bit more apprehensive about that, because writer David Cage, it's like one that, here's what's funny, his games are unintentionally funny because of how bad the writing is.
Press X to Sean.
Yeah, if he's not writing a comedy, I wonder if that's just gonna fall so flat, because now he's attempting to do the thing that people take away from his games because how badly written a lot of them were. So, and the fact that it's also a cross-gen title. I had read something that apparently he wanted to make it like a PS5 exclusive, but that would be weird because he literally severed his ties with Sony, or more like Sony severed their ties with him, because near the end of Detroit Become Human's development, there were reports from the studio that there were sexual harassment problems and all that, and how they were gaslighting and sending lawsuits to the reporters from a French publication that they were reporting. So it's like it was putting the studio in a very bad light, to the fact that we never reported this back in December because we were on break. Apparently they've been having hard time staffing up for these games because of the steam of Quantic Dream. So very interesting to see where that goes. I will always have a small blind spot for Quantic Dream, because despite the bad things that happen in some games, they're still unique compared to everything else. And you had that great experience playing Detroit Become Human that I had playing something like Until Dawn with people.
Yeah.
So you know how fun those games are as a group
It's
effort.
immensely fun. I agree. So I do have a soft spot in my heart for it. And even though David Cage and a lot of his stuff is really questionable,
Hmm.
there's a part of me that's like, oh, but I really enjoyed that one time.
Yeah, but I feel that's
uh,
why Heavy Rain's my favorite of his games because it was probably the least pretentious of them all. Beyond Two Souls just missed the mark, and then Detroit
yeah,
Become Human. Parts of it missed the mark, Marcus,
yeah.
but then things like
But
Connor
like
and Kara.
Connor and Kara were great storylines, I would say.
Exactly. So we'll see. It's like the game journalist side of things will always have a thing against David Cage. So that's what's always so funny. But we'll see if they still have a bone to pick against him when he releases these two games, especially if one of these turn out really good. So number 6, Paul. Longtime Microsoft partner Certain Affinity is said to be heavily involved developing a new mode for Halo Infinite's multiplayer, as well as developing an all-new exclusive game for Xbox. The studio, led by Max Hoverman, who is well known for developing some of the best maps from Halo 2, is allegedly developing what will become Halo's take on a Battle Royale mode, though the report by Windows Gaming Central claims it could be something else too. As for the exclusive game for Xbox, it says that they are developing Microsoft's own take on Monster Hunter, according to the ever-reliable Jeff Grubb. It is said this new co-op game started development in 2020 and could see the light of day in 2023 and 2024. So, Battle Royale for Halo Infinite, Paul. I think it fits if that's what they're actually doing.
It I hate to say that Halo would really benefit from a battle royale just because of the solid way that the world and mechanics are built that would lend itself super well to good map design and
Combat.
the ability to just delve into all of that combat because the big battle area, big team battle, that's what it's called,
Mm-hmm.
is awesome, but if you don't have a good map selection,
Mm-hmm.
it's ruined because sometimes you just have the wrong sight lines open, you have the wrong weapon placement, and then all of a sudden one team can just steamroll every time. And I've seen that a couple of times in Halo Infinite here and there. So I've been like, oh, maybe not, but at the same time, just seeing that single player has sold me on the fact that if you drop in a set of Spartans into an area out of the side of a Pelican, it's just like it's built for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfectly built for it.
Exactly. And I feel like that's why, to me, like, in the few times that I play Battle Royales, I usually play the ones that I didn't think the combat was very good, like PUBG and Fortnite.
Yeah.
Especially, I felt like Apex Legends was one of the first few that the combat held its side of the bargain for me to like enjoy it, despite that still being
Yes.
not a genre I want.
Because you can still hold your own in something like Apex Legends,
Mm-hmm.
but like PUBG, you get shot once, done. Freaking Hyperscape, which we'll talk about that developer in a second, but
Yeah.
getting shut down because of the bad time to kill.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you really have just such a small lightning in a bottle possibility. I mean, Spellbreak was great concept, poor execution,
Mm-hmm.
just all of those. There's a million of them.
Yeah, and I felt this new mode for Halo Infinite made by Max Hoverman, who has done some of the Halo multiplayer's best work, and he doesn't even work for Bungie and or 343. He's just like a partner. In fact, I take that back. He worked for Bungie during the Halo 2 era. Then he left and did Certain Affinity, but always remained tied to help with Halo whenever needed. He made the if you play the Halo Master Chief Collection, there's the Halo 2 maps that are straight from the Xbox, and then there's the remastered ones. The remastered ones were all those remastered ones were made by him, and they allowed him to remaster them to like the modern Code of Paint. He knows his stuff and what makes the Halo sandbox work. So if he's the one helping spearhead a new mode for Halo Infinite that can keep that game alive and kicking, because that's the thing, like the Halo multiplayer really good, but no one's started. I don't see a lot of people talking about it right now, so it kind of came and went in a way. Don't you feel it? Don't you think? So
Yeah.
maybe because we're not in tune to that ecosystem, maybe we're saying that. But I know more I hear about Halo is about how they're messing up the microtransactions. So I know
Yeah.
they're having some troubles there.
It sounds like they've been trying to change that, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it's like no hardly anybody that I speak to has continued to play it. if at all. Like one of them is he wasn't even able to buy it because he didn't have a PC for it, and then he wasn't able to play it on his base Xbox. He just didn't trust the performance of it.
It's not that good.
And it makes me worry about the idea that it's like, yes, we can make things cross generation like this, but should you? Because at a certain point you're kneecapping one or the other, and usually it's going to be the past one. You just need to cut your losses on that. You're going to make a little more money, but you're going to lose.
And you're kneecapping also the next gen version, because
exactly,
unless you're doing two completely different versions, which is, with the amount of resources going on around here and how hard game development is, it's very hard to be doing two games at the same time and releasing multiple platforms. So yeah, I feel bad for the people that had to play Halo Infinite in Xbox. I'm glad our PCs were able to handle it. But
thank God.
If this new mode is something new or it's a battle royale, I can see Halo Infinite, especially how beloved that thing was when it came out, more than the other two Halos. I mean, I think it deserves that. As for these exclusive though, the fact that they're gonna take the fact they're saying they're doing their own take on Monster Hunter kind of pleases me, because it means, okay, they're not gonna acquire Capcom. Yet.
Gosh, if somebody buys Capcom, I mean, just look at Konami with how scumbaggish some of their stuff has been. Just imagine if they tried buying more things. And,
yeah. I will say this. I would give for anything, whether it's Microsoft or Sony, to manage to take away the IPs from Konami and let Konami just rot. Like, that's the one thing. If we're going to be in this consolidation war that we are right now,
somebody
like, that would be the one.
Konami, just let them build games again.
Yeah, they're rotting. Their IPs are rotten in either really bad games like Contra, like Rogue Corp, or something like that happens, or weird pachinko machines, or weird things they're doing with Castlevania. It's like, or eFootball. Look what happened to eFootball last year. That was,
at least Capcom has the ability to make a pachinko machine for Devil May Cry and then put out the best game of the series at the same time. Like, Konami, just do something, guys.
Exactly, that would be like the only one. So at least this tells me it's like Microsoft is not knocking at the heels of Capcom, because if you're doing your own take on Monster Hunter, it means that you're not buying the guy that's doing Monster Hunter. So it'll be interesting, because Monster Hunter kind of exists in its own silo. It doesn't have like real competition, and I can see that being great Game Pass fodder. That, hey, want to play a co-op game? Do you hunt monsters? There's Game Pass. Join there. To be fair, they have had Monster Hunter World in Game Pass. It's also in PS Plus collection, so they have made Monster Hunter be kind of like one of those quick PS online games that you can ask someone, hey, we should try this. Which we should. We should.
If we were able to do that, because I have a...
You have it installed, right?
I have it installed. Yeah. I have a post storyline character that I have, and I really want to get back into it. My muscle memory is probably just trashed on it at this point.
I would have to start from the very beginning again. But
yeah, my goodness, though, it would be kind of nice to go back to that with some friends.
Yeah, people still to this day like go to the bat. They go for that game. It's like one of the best games of the last generation.
It's like, it's sort of repetitive in a way, but it's also
that's always been that
comfort food level of repetitive that you're just like, all right, time to go through this, time to go farm it, time to go have fun, and that's like your thing. If that's your gameplay loop, then I respect it, because it's very fun.
And still to this day, that's Capcom's best-selling single game ever.
It shocks the heck out of me. I mean, I will say Monster Hunter World broke out more than I've ever expected Monster Hunter to do that.
Absolutely. It built a reputation in mobile and in the handheld space that left so much FOMO in the console space, that then when they did a really good console only version of that game that didn't feel gimped, it felt like it was built for that. It blew up really quick. And it came out in January at the perfect time when everyone's starving for a game.
Yes.
So I wish Dying Light 2, screw you. I wish it had come out in January. That would have been the perfect time for it to play.
Just like its predecessor.
Yes. Final story, Paul. We have evaded NFT talk for as long as we could, but this deserves a mention. Not tired of becoming the recent laughingstock of the gaming industry, Ubisoft held an interview where they discussed the failure of their NFT experiment, Ubisoft Quartz, and players' utter rejection of the practice infiltrating their games. According to Ubisoft, players, I quote, don't get it, and that fans don't understand the upside of being able to resell their digital items, and that once they move on from the impression, NFTs are just something that's destroying the planet and just a tool of speculation, they'll find they're a valuable asset for gaming. Despite other companies receiving massive rejection from NFT implementation on their games and immediately backing down. You see that Team 17 thing that I posted today?
Yeah.
They immediately announced and took that down. That's what's been going. Ubisoft is the only one doubling down on the idea despite their own developers objecting to their use. And considering the one use of NFTs that could potentially be useful to gamers, like, say, the actual reselling of a digital game, is one they say it's not something they're prioritizing right now. It's clear what Ubisoft wants to do. Scam people out of more money. I read that thing, and it was the equivalent of the Simpsons meme. It was like, am I out of touch? No, it's the kids that are wrong.
Yeah, that is basically exactly what I hear out of this post and set of news going on. I can't believe this stuff is real. I can't believe Ubisoft is real with the way they keep making new ways for us to question their sanity.
And the fact that they're the only ones right now, they're like, oh yeah, these other companies, the Stalker developer and others, that they announced that they were gonna do NFTs. They got massive amount of backlash that they immediately were like, you guys are right, we're done. Everyone's just like stepping on the rake with NFTs. Everyone thinks, no, we're gonna be the ones that do it right. I don't know, no one wants it. Abort. But they're the ones like, no, the kids don't get it. We're still doubling down. Despite our developers even telling us that it's not a good idea. It's like, Ubisoft is the king of always trying to jump into trends. Look what happened with Hyperscape. And you mentioned it's like they killed that game now. That game didn't last more than 2 years. And that was them trying to jump into the Battle Royale arena. To be fair, they tried to find a different angle compared to other ones by trying to make it more of an arena shooter.
The concept was interesting.
The time to kill was bad.
Yeah, it was terrible. I don't know why they couldn't just tweak that, because that's such a small thing to fix. But clearly they wanted that longer time to kill for some reason, and it just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, and it's so crazy to me, like, just within this past year, we've seen Ubisoft announce so many things that have been utterly rejected, to the point that I even feel they must have been the ones that went to YouTube and be like, please try to hide the dislikes, because they had the most disliked things that I've ever seen in recent memory, from X Defiant, the Ghost Recon Frontline thing that immediately got canned,
and Ubisoft Quartz, and Rainbow Six Extraction
that just came and went. Some people enjoy it, but it's like it's. And I'll tell you this, is like, now that Activision is still a garbage company that will remain a garbage company until Microsoft swallows them within a year and change. Like, they announced that they're trying to union bust the whole thing that happened with Raven Software, which only a scummy company would try to do that. And again, the kind of damaged goods Microsoft is absorbing with Activision. I tell you, once they're done and they become the Microsoft studio, Ubisoft, there will be nothing stopping Ubisoft from being the absolute worst company available if they keep making these stupid moves and squandering every kind of goodwill imaginable. It's like, here's the tank. Here's the bottoming of the goodwill tank, and they're still like leaking down here from goodwill. It's like they just keep doing this. It almost feels like, Paul, what they need is someone to come by them and extract all the stupid execs, which, considering the market we are, it seems like that's what's gonna happen.
Have we really reached the full circle where we started this episode going, this is a terrible idea, and now we're like, hang on a second, Ubisoft is being really dumb, maybe somebody should buy them?
Look,
but like, can you imagine if like Tencent bought Ubisoft?
Oof, oh man. And that's like the biggest, and that's like the big fear of everything, especially right now. It's like, we know 2 big ones already went. I don't know if there's anything possible to allow them to go for another purchase in the middle of all this. So it could be Tencent, and Ubisoft is only valued at $7 billion. Can you believe that? So cheap.
I'm kind of impressed they're still that high, but
yes.
I mean, granted, they're the creators of like the Assassin's Creeds and everything else that's still very profitable.
And I still like a bunch of their games. Like, there's something about some of their games that speak to me, but it's like, it's so getting hard to like become a fan of their games and seeing that the execs doing all this stupidity and saying the stupid stuff. Like, if you wanted to make the case for NFTs, you don't come out and say, oh, players don't get it. That's a big way for players to say, F you, we're never going to participate in anything you do.
And gamers are fueled by spite. Yeah. So you tell us not to do something, you tell them, oh, you don't get it, you're not going to understand it. EA boy saying, you don't like it, don't buy it. And they're like, okay, we won't, out of spite, even if I wanted to get it.
And poor Battlefield 5, that's what happened. They were the ones that said, if you don't like what we're doing Battlefield 5, don't get it.
It just keeps happening to people that don't understand the raw power of anger.
Yes, and I was like slowly trying to build some excitement. There's like that Dawn of Ragnarok expansion that they're doing for Assassin's Creed Valhalla coming out on March.
The crossover.
Yeah. The crossover was really cool because
apparently,
it gave me an idea of about what Assassin's Creed Infinity could be. Right. What they're saying is like, oh, is Cassandra gonna be the threading tie that's gonna tie all of that together?
She's gonna be the Nick Fury.
Yeah, literally
putting together a team.
Yeah, literally.
Have you seen a man in 1500s Italy?
It's like that's how it feels. But yeah, it's like if there's something that I'm being so happy, despite the exhausting nature of this past month, reading an NFT story from literally every corner of the internet, from YouTube to Twitter, everything was like embracing NFTs. The U.S. Postal Service embracing NFTs. Remember that?
About that, yeah.
Oh man, it's like that has made the year feel more long already than it's been, and we're only a month in. But if there's something that I have really been impressed by, has been the unilateral hatred towards NFTs. It's like
I kind of do appreciate that. At least
the tiny amount of crypto bros that are all about NFTs are dwarfed. They're like this compared to this amount of people that absolutely abhor the idea.
Somebody pointed out that they broke down the actual amount of wallets that have spent money on NFTs and cryptocurrency, and it's something like only 400,000 total people have bought and traded it. So it is entirely because people are like begging people to get in so that they can cash out, and you can't cash out until it's a certain point. And that it's just it's a whole
that's why it's a tool of speculation. That's why it says it's a tool for speculation. There's like no value in a limited digital thing. There's no value in a limited thing you don't touch with yourself. I understand like a limited run painting because it's a quantifiable thing. I can understand that, but not in digital goods. And again, kind of like the only thing that I could ever be accepting of NFTs in any way is the whole thing about reselling a digital game. That's the point, that it's about you being able to kind of monetize your digital goods. That's like the only way that I can see NFTs ever becoming a thing in games. If it allows us to have like a GameStop style marketplace where I don't really like this game that I bought, I'm gonna sell it. Maybe someone's gonna sell it, and but
which would be nice, but I highly doubt that on their own marketplace they would allow that, because that's where things get real messy.
Yes, and it would require that to be what my Xbox and PlayStation do. That they basically make every game that they sell an NFT of sorts, where they can buy the game and then they can sell it, kind of like some people used to do with physical games. I'm done with this, I'm gonna go trade it to GameStop for some credit and put it towards the next game. That's how the economics used to be.
Absolutely what would kill all third-party games and stores. My gosh,
exactly. And I think that's why they're not doing it, because they still there's a reason they made disc versions of the consoles. They still expect the people to have that choice to do it.
I think that for a lot of people, especially that the ones that don't have internet or don't have good internet, that's still a very viable and needed part of it. So I can see how like a lot of people, where at least for me, I take it for granted, but you go like an hour to the west or the east of me and you will not get good internet at all, no matter where you are.
And those people need those physical games if they ever want a game.
Absolutely need physical games. Even though they have to download part of it, they'll take like those 3-4 hours to download the rest of the disc version of their game, and that's like all they can do. Where for me, I can download 4 or 5 games in like couple hours,
Same.
maybe just an hour. But also, I'm living in a huge metropolitan area, so
Same.
I can get away with that. So I can see why a lot of people need it. Just even if progress is happening, it's only going to go as far as internet is going to be available.
Exactly. But to wrap this up, Paul, like, just the fact that the whole thing, they mentioned that they're not prioritizing the reselling of games, just about the things that they're wanting to trinket sell in those games, just tells you everything. At least in the Ubisoft side, they just want to scam you out from more money. This is like microtransactions taken to the utmost levels and taking advantage of the crypto bros that just like spending an insurmountable amount of money and completely invaluable shit. Like, that's what it is. And as long as Ubisoft still keeps pushing the core thing, I'm gonna be making fun of them as long as I live, because they're just idiots. And with that, Paul, we conclude this week's episode.
We conclude it. Yay!
Yes. Tell me, Paul, like, where can people find you?
As always, y'all, you can find me actually at Twitter at Dork of Art. I recently have some new art going up there, both a commission and some other work that
for
is
your
going
game.
to be, yes, which is coming out on March 21st. Go look it up, called Sea of Choices. I am the lead character designer, and I just recently negotiated the price that I'm going to be paid for all of my work on it, and I'm very happy that I am actually going to get paid for this, for one, and for two, I can get paid enough to say that I feel like I'm a professional in the industry at this point. Even if it's commission based, I mean, freelance work still means you're part of it, you're in. So it makes me really happy, and the fact that they want to keep making more games makes me happy, because that means, hey,
more
they
work
want
for you
and more work for me.
Especially if they want you.
So go look at that, Dork of Art and Sea of Choices. Also YouTube at Dork of Art, and Twitch at AngelSword21. And for you, Alejandro,
Twitch.tv/The Slayer Giant, Twitter @A_Dorsegovia, Instagram Alejandro Segovia 93, and my written content at thecriticalcorner.com, where I'm mostly trying to post companion pieces to all the podcasts that we're putting out. So, Paul, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you next week, or probably this Friday if we end up getting Dying Light 2, if it's actually good. And remember, people,
press X
to play.
Good night, everyone.
See you later.